So we are recording now and want to welcome everybody to our lunch and learn. Bring your own lunch. Maybe have it go out for lunch afterwards. We are going to axe these axioms today with H2M, and Jason Jacobson is joining us. I'm not going to read a full bio because I'm sure he's going to tell us a little bit about him. But we've got a great group here today. And again, rename yourselves, first name, last name, and the organization that you're with. Keep your video on because we want to see you and your smiling faces. And make this as interactive as possible. So on behalf of the Fergus Falls Area Chamber of Commerce, we're thrilled that you're zooming in with us today, and we're gonna all become modern day marketers in the next 59 minutes or less.
That's
How does that
right.
sound? There's the challenge. So
There's a good
Jason,
challenge.
I'm gonna let you take it away.
Fantastic. Well, thanks everyone for coming. Time is the last currency we have. That's why you literally pay attention. So I appreciate you spending your time with me out of considering all the other things you could be doing, like eating. So who am I? Come on. There we go. Who's this bozo? I'm been in the marketing brand game for about 15 years, depending on 13 to 15, depending on when I first got paid to do stuff. Born and raised in Fargo, probably gonna die here, which is awesome. I love this town. H2M grad. Like I said, brand game. Just cut my teeth as a copywriter. Got really into marketing strategy later on in my career. I joined H2M, brand house, about two and a half years ago, as their senior creative strategist, so creative director plus. But that's what my resume says. If you really want to know me as a person, just think of me as a raccoon. We'll go into it. So our industry, as marketers, communicators, we use a lot of these terms interchangeably for whatever reason, because marketing likes to roll things up into the cloud. So just to kind of delineate when I use different terms, this is what they mean. So really, when I talk about communications, that's just anything that we do to inform another person, right? Marketing is things that we use to get people to do what we want them to do, spur action. You can say persuade, I like to say motivate, same umbrella. Advertising is different than marketing. Advertising is a component of marketing, and which is a component of communications. Advertising, essentially, we're just paying for eyeballs and ear holes. We're using someone who has an existing audience to tap into that, and we will pay them for access to that audience. And then content is a word that gets thrown around a lot. Content just means stuff. So it's the vessel that delivers the message, whether that's copy, text, or copy and text is the same thing, visuals, audio, etc. Okay. And then I've designed this presentation so that anyone of any experience level in the communications field can take something away. So if you're the chief marketing officer of a large corporation, we've got some things that we think we can help you out with. If you're, a HR manager, there's some things you can take away with. If you're the receptionist who gets everything dumped on you, and this is you're just forced to do it, we're going to still try to provide you some tools that you can take away from this conversation. Axiom. So confusing word, but I liked the wordplay, and you're all here, so it worked. But essentially, an axiom is a statement which is said to be established, accepted, self-evidently true, something that we believe. And in the communication, marketing, advertising world, at one time, some of these statements were possibly true. But over the years, the world's changed. This is even pre-pandemic, but I think 2020 definitely highlights that we as people are communicating differently. We have different expectations. For example, we all expect to be able to see each other on video anytime, anywhere. But like I said, it harkens back to things that happened a long time ago. And being that we're where we are, I won't call us small communities, we'll call ourselves distant suburbs of Minneapolis. So in the distant suburbs, we are late adopters, but I think all of these things that have happened before have radically changed the way that we operate as consumers or as people, as employees. And so the first axiom I want to talk about is, I've heard this from clients in the past, where they say, the world's not that different, right? When it comes to marketing communications, it's not that different. People are people, have always been people. They evolve slowly over time. Well, I would argue that things have changed because of technology, bruh. So hey fam, there are, in my opinion, 5 main events that happened between 2005 and 2007 that radically changed people's behavior for good. Anyone want to take a guess?
Yes, Google.
Google what?
Google searches.
Okay. Actually, Google came out a little bit before. They came out in around '99. So they were, but they are the catalyst to everything, and they are on this list, which is Amazon Prime launches in 2005. Google, this is why I asked, they buy YouTube in 06. Facebook opens to everyone in 06. In 2007, Netflix starts streaming. And lastly, the iPhone was also released in 2007. We didn't really get it around these parts till like 2009, 2010. It's just because the cellular technology wasn't out here in the distant suburbs. But I want to talk about what these things are and what they mean to us as a species. Amazon Prime launches in 2005. So they started selling for a monthly subscription. They started selling a limited number of products, and now they sell everything that you could get delivered to your door in 2 days. I remember as a kid, it would be 4 to 6 weeks for delivery. That has never happened. That will never happen again, where customers will expect shipment in at least a week's time. More importantly, as consumers, we can buy anything we want without having to leave our home. I see commercials for, we can buy mattresses, we can buy cars, we can buy farm equipment. We're not limited to books or trinkets or clothing anymore. It's all, we can buy groceries and prepackaged recipes. That's all happening. And that is a radical difference than where we were sort of internet 1.0 around the 2000 area. Second thing, Google buys YouTube in 2006. And overnight, YouTube becomes the world's second largest search engine, period. Even exceeding China's own government-controlled search engine. YouTube overnight becomes number 2. And a lot of things happen because of this. One, there's no barrier to entry to create content anymore. You don't have to go through a studio system. You don't have to go through agents. You don't have to get discovered. If you have an idea, you start making content. And that content varies from essays, entertainment content, tutorials, little explainer videos, hell, kids opening up toys and watching and making an entire living just opening toys and playing with them and having other people watch. So and then even within that, now as a consumer of content, if I have an interest in something, no matter how obscure, I can find a global audience who has a similar interest. Case in point, the man on the screen here is a Malaysian British comedian who goes by the term or by the name Uncle Roger on YouTube. As of March, Uncle Roger just watches other people's YouTube video and critiques how they make egg fried rice. Just egg fried rice. As of March, he had 35 videos, 3 million followers watching a comedian making egg fried rice. I am one of those followers because it's hilarious. Uncle Roger, check him out. But more to the point, that's a niche. Food Network would never have onboarded that show. He had an idea, he made his own content, it was weird enough, and it was funny enough, it got followed, you'll be found. Totally, all the power from as far as what we choose to spend our time with is now in the hands of the consumer. So, next thing, speaking of Facebook opens to everyone in 2006. In 2006, if you were over the age of 13, you could get a Facebook account. And now, I graduated from college in 07, so I was part of the Oregon Trail from Zanga to MySpace to Facebook. But what happens is, Now, if I want to communicate with someone, or if I want to share an opinion, I'm not just sharing that opinion onesie twosies throughout where I go. I can share my opinion with the 1,000+ followers or friends that I have, or the millions of followers or fans that I have, and we can have communication, a dialogue at scale. More importantly, we can also spread opinions and information. So that news article the news that you had to see at 6 o'clock and 10 o'clock no longer matters. I can share news as it happens, and I can share it selectively. So the information that people get is, again, controlled by people who are sharing it, not large organizations sponsored by advertisers. Big change. Next, Netflix starts streaming in 2007. So we already talked about how YouTube sort of managed content. Content could just be produced. Well, now even highly produced Hollywood-like content, we get to watch when we want, where we want, for as long as we want. One of the coolest things to happen out of 2020 is I didn't see a single spoiler for any piece of content, new or old. It was great. But if you think about when I was growing up, in the 90s and the early 2000s, we would ask people, hey, did you see that episode of Friends last night? We don't even use that anymore. We go, hey, what season are you on? Right? Like that's a radical change. And the other thing is that Netflix doesn't need to be sponsored by advertising. They make millions of dollars every month, if not $1 billion every month, just by they've eliminated the middleman. And people are paying for that content to avoid advertising and marketing message. They're actively working to dodge advertisers like me, which is fine. It's great. And lastly, the iPhone was released in 2007. So we talked about I can shop, I can buy anything on the internet and get it to my house in 2 days. I can create whatever video content I want. I can share it with my audience, however large or small that may be. And I can watch pre-produced content ad-free. And I can do all of that from here. And if you're laughing, you've done it. If you're not laughing, you've still done it. Okay, so what does all this mean, right? It's to look at the axiom of, the world hasn't changed that much. I would say, think again. Start by auditing your own consumption habits. Before when I was developing this presentation, I did. And what I came to realize is that if I see an unknown phone number, I rarely answer it. At least I think I just on a whim answered your call last week, but otherwise I don't. I've been told about my extended warranty too many times to just pick up the phone. You text me, I'm gonna respond. You email me, probably gonna respond. But I will not pick up the phone. So take an inventory of how you prefer to learn, how you prefer to be communicated with, how you prefer to communicate with others. Compare that list with what tactics you're currently doing to communicate with others, and change as necessary. Improve. Dip your toes into one new tactic. Okay, so maybe your organization sends, you've audited and said, I spend a lot of time on YouTube. I really like watching video. And we send out a monthly employee newsletter. And it has we've always waited for the president to write his or her message, and it's a process. Well, instead, next month, try, recording your president, give their little spiel on a video, and then embed that into your email and pass it along. See if it works. You can see if people are watching or not, and go from there, right? And if you're already doing all this, if you're on all the socials and you're doing all the telecom stuff and you're super sophisticated, then I would challenge you to find the next thing. Like TikTok's already hit pretty much critical mass, but what else is there out? What's the new thing that's going to be happening? For me, it's probably voice search. So making sure that as everyone's, if they're asking Alexa or Siri or any of the other devices, to find something near them, optimize your content to make sure that you appear not just in the Google search, but also in an Echo or an Alexa search. Find the next thing and experiment. As you know, Gary Vaynerchuk talks a lot about the term arbitrage, which is really the idea of if you're a first mover, you're going to get a lot more eyeballs for the cost than if you're, you know, a late adopter. That's oversimplification. Axiom 2. Customers are your only audience to focus on. And this is one that I think was probably true in the 20th century. It's not as true today. So when I say audiences, I'm talking about anyone who engages with your brand, anyone who touches your organization. We want them to have a high degree of affinity, which is a really fancy way of saying we want everyone to like you. So I'm talking customers, I'm talking employees, vendors, suppliers, dealers, communities, special interest groups that support what you're doing, special interest groups that don't support what you're doing. We want them to at least have an affinity towards your organization, right? Because as Bond villain Bezos says, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So the old adage of we just, you know, make something highly creative and throw it out there and people are going to like us is still part of it, but it's only a part of it. We have to, branding is akin to the word reputation. And so if you're actively working on your reputation, that's going to influence what people are saying when you're not in the room. Because remember, everyone can talk about you from here, and they will, right? Disgruntled employees can talk to the masses from here. Upset vendors from here. Anyone who has an opinion about your organization can share it with their audience from anywhere. And that's the last toilet joke in the presentation. You're welcome. So what this really comes down to is how do I start making sure that I'm, you know, talking to my audiences and building that affinity? It really starts with ask a whole bunch of questions, right? Ask your team members, ask your friends, your family, like, but with your team members, go, hey, if you needed it, would you buy our product or service? Would you recommend your best friend to apply to work here? Hey, vendor, how do you like doing business with us? I mean, it's just, it's getting a lay of the land to see where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are. And if you've got a list of weaknesses that are common and you see common threads, now you have a place to start improving it so that you can build, so you can improve and build a culture. And culture gets thrown around a ton, you know, we just culture. And I think there's two types of cultures. There's actual culture and there's superficial culture. Superficial culture is when you hear companies being like, you can bring your dog, you can wear jeans on Fridays, you can have all the soda you can drink, we have arcade games in the break room. That's superficial. When I'm talking about cultures, I'm talking about employees who buy into your mission, your vision, your values. They're like-minded, they work for each other. When you ask someone, hey, what does your company do? Everyone says the same or a similar answer, right? They are united by a common sense of purpose, and they go out and they work to fulfill that purpose. That's a symptom of a really good culture. If you're doing that and you've got it, the next thing to do is to work towards advocacy. So create platforms and ways for your employees to go out and do good work on your behalf and spread your organization's good message. And if you've already got employees doing that, for example, Bell's Pay It Forward program is probably the paragon of what I'm talking about here. But if you've got something like that going, extend it out. I've never seen an organization be like, hey, vendors, I'm going to empower you as my vendor to go talk about us and how you like working with us. And, you know, how we can be a model partner going forward. And when in doubt, if you don't know how to do any of this stuff, just try sincere gestures that come from a place of gratitude, right? So even something as simple as, like giving someone a card on their birthday. We talked about that a little bit coming on. It's not expected, but it means a ton. Getting something small out of the blue will mean more than the Christmas bonus. Right? This isn't, and just that's where I would start when in doubt. Last axiom. This one's I'm probably going to talk about the most because I think it's the buzziest, and I want to debunk it. Is data tells the whole story. I've heard this from clients, colleagues, different organizations that I've been employed with. We need data. We need all the data. There's data. Do we have the data? Do we have the research? Do we have the data? Do we know? Okay. It's time to understand that data has limitations. Data is like a net. It's really good if you know how to use it. It's really easy to get tangled and stuck if you don't. And I think there are a lot of organizations who find themselves getting stuck because of the sheer amount of data and not understanding what it means and how to apply it. So here's a breakdown. Data is really good at showing, the who, what, when, where, how. It's really great at measuring that. But data can never tell you why. So if you put out, let's say you send out a company survey, and the data will come back and say that 60% of your employees filled out the survey. It won't tell you why they did or why they didn't. Did they fill out the survey because they were afraid they'd get in trouble if they didn't? Did they fill out the survey because they're motivated to help improve the organization? Did they not do it because they just didn't have time? You don't get answers on that. And you can even ask it you can ask that in the survey, but for the 40% of people who didn't even open the email, it doesn't do any good. So data will never say why. It doesn't tell the whole story. Right? Also, data shows the past. I clicked on that ad. I opened that email. I pushed that button. I did, and all of those are past tense verbs. And so I would argue that data doesn't predict the future. And there's probably someone on the call who's going, but what about AI, right? What about AI? AI is going to solve it. Well, I can tell you right now that AI is not there yet. It's got a long way to go. And to prove this, I would challenge you, either now or after this, whatever, take out your phone, go to predictive text, right? And try to write, lunch today was good. 4 words. Lunch today was good. Or lunch was good today. Either way, either combination. And see if you can actually do that on your phone with predictive text. I'm going to bet the majority of you will not. And that means that companies like Apple and Google, who have trillions of data points, probably even quadrillions of data points as of right now, along with your own behavior, because remember, predictive text works with your behavior as a data endpoint, along with the macro algorithm. You probably will not be able to spell lunch was good today. So it's not there yet. Data provides information, but it doesn't provide insight. So you can have a wealth of this, what's happened in the past, but data is not going to tell you what to do in the future. It'll say, keep doing this or don't do this, maybe. Right? It doesn't give you that. And it explains the activity, again, things that have happened in the past, but it doesn't explain context. So I'm searching for a new car. Well, why do I need a car? Because I don't like the look of my old one. My current car broke down. I paid off my loan. I'm looking for trade. It doesn't give you a sense of what the audience is thinking or needing as they move into it. And so I love data. I do. I'm crapping on it a lot, but I do like data, but it's really important to understand its limitations so you don't get analysis paralysis and you're not stuck waiting for all of the information before making progress. And here's another thing about data. I'll tell a personal story. This happened last October. An organization came to us and said, we want to run a campaign. Here's a script. We've already pre-approved it. We need you to point the camera, hit record, and run this 30-second commercial for us. Okay, I'll take your money, sure. So we did. About 6 weeks later, they go, this campaign's not working. It's not working. And I went, I know why it's not working, because it's not that cool. And so in my own hubris, I worked with my team, and we came up with, a spot that I thought was a lot more evocative. It was more modern. It was neat. And we ran it side by side. I get the data, and my spot did 30% worse. Like the hip, the cool, like I failed by 30%. By 30%? What the hell? Oh my God. And I was like, I got to get out of this business. How many clients have I defrauded of millions of dollars over the years? And I'm a fraud. I'm going to go open a hot dog stand because I can't. I'm done. I'm dead. This is all true. Even the hot dog stand, I did research into it. It's fantastic. And then at one point I had to look at the big picture. And what I found was this. So on the left is me looking at the data saying, I did 30% worse. In reality, their video had a 1% click-through rate. My video had a 0.7% click-through rate. So I'm agonizing over the 30%, but I'm not thinking about the 98.3% of people who didn't care. And mind you, this is digital. This was a total digital campaign. We had our audience parameters set up. These are the eyeballs of people that were most likely to buy our product. And I'm focusing on the 30% difference, not the 98.7% who didn't care. And it's very easy for us when we're staring at a spreadsheet to think about that. We look at, when we're running digital ads, the goal is a 0.1% click-through rate. So for every 1,000 people that see it, one person will act. And that's considered a success. And I would say it is a success. But it's so easy to get to look at the percentage points and not turn it into the context of numbers, because again, data doesn't provide context. And so I would encourage any of you who are looking at data to keep the big picture in mind and keep looking at how do you get a bigger piece of the red pie, because that's really what matters, not the performance of a specific ad. All right, that last slide was all of my math, and I just, maybe it's wrong. I don't know, I'm gun shy. Anyway, so I talked a lot about the limitations of data, and again, I'm not saying don't collect data. Absolutely collect data. That's a place to start. If you don't have Google Analytics on your website, you start there. You need something. But more importantly, if you're going to start collecting data and you haven't before, learn the terms, right? Understand that when we're talking about CTRs, that's click-through rates. That's people who've actually clicked on your ad. Open rates, PPC, which stands for pay-per-click, CPM, cost per thousand, eCPM, estimated cost per thousand, versus there's all of these fancy data terms. Learn what they mean, and then figure out what you want to learn. If I'm trying to see how successful a campaign is, do I care about the total number of impressions? Do I care about conversions? Do I care about engagement? What do I care about? And then we can start to sort of block out all of the other noise and move forward with intent. And then after that, once you've started measuring with intent, make sure that you're competing against yourself. I talked earlier about the 0.1% click-through rate as being good, but that's a national average. Compete against yourself. Data doesn't provide context. We're talking about all of the industries everywhere at that 0.1%. Don't do that. Try to get better over time. Work against yourself, because your brand and your organization is unique. So measure against that. And once you've got a good system and you're seeing, you don't want to see your data do this. You don't want to see an improvement go like this, and you don't want to see it go like this. You want up and downs. Because if it's just doing this, I'm not taking enough risks. Right? If I'm doing this and I see things go up and down, I did something well. I tried to repeat it. I did. I don't. You want to see ups and downs so there's more things to experiment with and learn. And once you've got that system going and that engine is moving full speed, then you want to start to pursue attribution. And we talked about data isn't predictive, but you can start to get some inferences, right? So I know that if I send an email on Tuesday at 10 a.m., I'm going to more than likely see more people open it than if I send it Tuesday at 8 a.m. or Wednesday. Right? I know that if I put $5,000 into Facebook, I'm going to see this kind of range of return, generally speaking. And that allows you to spend money more wisely, also just perform better. And so you're not agonizing over the 30% that you failed on. You're more excited about the 30% increase that you saw. Okay. Whew. So that's my rant on data. Next. All you need is the big commercial, right? All you need is the magic bullet. Well, silver bullets are a waste of silver. We see it in pop culture and it's popular, especially in sitcoms. Oh, our business is failing. Let's run a Super Bowl commercial and it's going to be great. And then we're going to do that's great for comedy. And these are two of my favorite episodes, some of my favorite episodes. But the reality is we need to have small and frequent interactions. So according to Forrester research, and they did it in 2017 and I think 2019 in Canada, but the idea is the same. It takes 17 positive experiences to counteract one negative experience. So 17 interactions with your brand, whether that's going on your website, seeing an ad, having a conversation, talking to customer service, all of that, all of those things that they touch, which is again why it's so important to have a reputation and affinity. It takes 17 positives versus one negative. So when you think about how we're delivering, I don't want to sign into FaceTime, how we're delivering content, it needs to be frequent. And so if we're thinking about the big Super Bowl style commercial, that's not efficient. It's not effective. If you have the budget, great, but it's better to be more consistent. So what we do is we forget it, set it and forget it, right? When I was deciding to pursue this career, it was awesome because you would go, oh, I'm going to spend half of year one's budget making this wonderful campaign, and then we're going to let it run for 2 years, and then in 2 years we're going to redo it all. It's not the case. It's ongoing, and that's ongoing content programs. It's making sure that you're consistent, so you don't be like, I haven't posted on Facebook in a year and a half. Right? I've seen organizations do it. Like, oh, you have a LinkedIn profile? Yeah, you've got a LinkedIn profile. Okay, it's been dormant since 2018. Okay, so let's make sure that we're consistently communicating on the platforms where we promised we would be. And for a lot of organizations, for every organization, I'll just say every, to do that, it's a lot, right? No longer are we on the TV, billboard, radio, we're done. I'm everywhere all the time. How do I create those assets, and how do I do it all? Well, here's a way to think about it. So, like I said, we used to think in terms of the big Super Bowl 30-second spot. But if you think bigger and you plan ahead, there's a lot more that you can do when you're creating stuff that'll pay off down the road. So instead of thinking in 30s and 15s, think about a large piece of content. Think about something like a 3-minute video. And you know that this 3-minute video is going to live on your YouTube page. This 3-minute video is going to live on your website. you'll share the long cut on social, perhaps. But if you plan ahead, now you can create 230s out of using the same footage, the same audio out of that 3-minute spot. And in that 30-second, if you plan ahead, you can cut that down to a 15 version, so it's just a shorter message, or you can cut it down to a trailer to go watch the 3-minute version. That's another set of content using the same using the same raw materials. You can strip out the visuals, add a little more music and some other sweetening effects, and now you've got yourself a radio spot if you've planned ahead. And you have some, if you're doing that shoot and you bring along a photographer and make sure you get really good stills of that video that you're producing. Now you can add a little copy, add a little design, and you can do almost any sort of static creative. So with one large video with some foresight, you can strip that into a whole bunch of different communication pieces without having to reinvent the wheel every time. And some of you might be like, well, okay, so you basically the 3-minute video is your campaign then? Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that it's one piece that you're splicing and dicing. No, in the sense that this long form piece of content isn't your advertising campaign. This is something that should be living on your website as information for 3 to 5 years or until it's no longer accurate. And it's not living in isolation. So if I'm a manufacturer and I've got, 10 different products, I'm gonna do the same 3-minute slice and dice with all 10. And so those will all be living on my website. And then that creates, so I have the static assets, which I can plop into an email. I have the videos, which I can throw into social quick. I have enough raw material to mix and match and do whatever I need to do. So maybe those 10 products, maybe 3 of them are geared towards construction. Well, I have the raw materials. Now I can rope it, and I've got a whole construction focused wheelhouse of content that I can mix and match and do with, versus trying to come up with the one big idea. Okay. So if you're vibing with that, and you're like, that makes sense. First thing to do is where to start is to take an inventory of all of your materials. This is going to take time, a lot of time, but take an inventory of all of your communication materials. See if you can get down to the actual raw files, not just the PDF of the brochure, but the actual InDesign file, or even better, the Word doc and the static image that went into it, and figure out what's still accurate and relevant. Throw away the stuff that's outdated, keep the stuff that's relevant and accurate, and then build upon it. And know that you can take, have a photo library, have a library of accurate content, know that you can mix and match and snip and embellish based on the content format. It'll be a lot easier for you to stay consistent, relevant, doing that versus trying to think, oh gosh, what's that Facebook post I need to do this month, right? Improve, like I said, plan ahead. If you're throwing a Christmas party or a holiday party for your employees, plan ahead. Bring someone there to capture bring your phone, take some photos, take some video. Because then next year, when you do the holiday party, or when you send a thank you, in January about the holiday party, you can use those existing assets, and you're not having to create something wholly new. You've got raw materials to produce stuff. Same thing with social. If you know that you've got an employee, if you've got an event coming up, plan ahead. Make sure someone's there to capture it so that you can share it with your friends and followers about what we did. And once you start getting into a groove that way, take it to the next level and provide the public access to your library of assets. And what I mean by that is we as consumers don't want to pick up the phone and call a salesperson. There's probably some salespeople on this call who would disagree, and that's fine. We can agree to disagree, but I'm right. That we want to, I want to get as much research in as I can before I pick up the phone so that we have information symmetry and I don't feel like I'm being sold to, that I feel like I'm coming at you with an equal amount of knowledge about what I want to buy. And so if you already have all these assets of accurate information, Put it out there, put it on your site, let people dig. Not only is it really helpful for the consumer, Google loves it. Google's whole algorithm is built on providing the best search information for that search query. So the more information you have, the more questions you're going to answer by the query, the better your site's going to do in terms of search engine optimization or SEO. Okay, couple more, and I will pick up the pace. Here we go. Number 5. This is the one next to data. This is the one that like kills me. People always notice and always remember that. Here's the reality, and it hurts, especially as a guy who spends his days trying to make brands famous. Folks don't think about you as much as you think they do. They don't. I mean, listen. I'm spending an hour with you today. I know the odds of you remembering everything that I talked about are about 0. And a month from now, will you remember any of this? I hope so. Will you remember that my name's Jason and I work for H2M in Fargo? I hope so. But I have to be realistic that you're going to live your life, and there's a chance that this all evaporates. And we have to just learn to accept it, because we are goldfish, not elephants. We have so much vying for our time that it's hard to remember everything. I don't remember the last 3 ads I saw. I don't remember the last Facebook post I saw when I'm scrolling. It's the reality, and it's okay. We just have to accept it and embrace it and work within the constraints. Excuse me. So what I hear, I'm gonna brush through these, right? I had a client say to me this summer, I wrote a script and I used the term roll up your sleeves, hey, it's a hard year, but we're rolling up our sleeves to make sure that we provide da 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 da. It was my way of saying, of avoiding in these uncertain times, because that was annoying. So, in these uncertain times, buy a new car. What? Ford, shut up. So I wrote this script and I used the term roll up your sleeves. And the client comes back and she goes, we can't use that. I'm like, well, why? It's a common term. Well, our competitor used it in a commercial a year ago. I'm like, they still. I said, so what you're saying is you're taking inventory. As I'm watching your commercial, which is interrupting my Hulu video, by the way. So you're interrupting my Handmaid's Tale binge. And I'm going to remember that phrase. And then I'm going to remember that other ad for your competitor that I saw a year ago. And I'm going to realize that you use the same phrase, but because they use this common term first, I'm going to devalue how I think about your organization. That's expecting a lot out of audiences that you have interrupted to say your spiel. Second thing, if this was a bank I was working with, it was a mortgage lender. When you go to the grocery store and they've got those booklets of like real estate guides, we elected not to spend money in putting an ad on that. And oh my gosh, these lenders were pissed. They're like, hey, if they'll notice, and they'll tell me that we weren't in there. I'm like, okay, well, your colleagues might, but you're expecting me, who's got way too many groceries in each hand, who picked up a thing, looking at houses, not looking at ads, looking at houses, to take inventory of all the banks that are represented, cross-reference that with all of the banks that I know, realize that you were missing, and then have a negative opinion about it. So instead, wouldn't it make more sense to let these lenders invest in this highly saturated piece and then you take those same dollars and go somewhere where they're not? That makes more sense to me, is to advertise where there's eyeballs without any competition around you. I lost that battle, but I still think it's important. And the last one is, this is my favorite. Well, we have to run in this publication. We have to do this marketing tactic, because if we don't, they're a customer and they'll leave us. Well, at worst, that's we call that extortion. You either sponsor my Little League team or else. At best, how flimsy is your relationship with that customer that if you say no, they're going to drop you? Like, if you don't sponsor their Little League team, they're going to find a different business to work with. That tells me you haven't done your job building a rapport, right? That's not marketing's fault. That's your responsibility to make sure that you're providing the energy and to make sure that relationship flourishes. So make decisions based on what you need to say, the context of your audience experience, right? So I'm not looking through that house publication, looking at ads that are saturated. I'm looking for houses, right? Understanding that experience. And then think about what opportunities you're missing out on if you are sort of following the same old. If you're looking for what those opportunities could be or looking for some actual feedback, the best place to look for me is in reading the reviews. So how do we read reviews? Okay, here's the spectrum of love and hate. When it comes, and I've had businesses I've worked with say they don't believe in reviews and they are now out of business. So heed that, read reviews. But understand the star system. So I don't look at 1s and 5s, right? Number 1, something else happened, you're just a punching bag. Like no taco could ever be so bad that it deserves a 1 star. It's a taco, right? A taco is a 2-star minimum guaranteed. Okay, unless it was like made out of a rat, but that's gross. Number 5, and then I don't look at 5 stars, right? 5 stars is I'm so excited because something else happened, or I'm just Minnesota nice and I don't know how to give criticism. Right? It's the 2s, the 3s, and the 4s that you should be looking at. So 2, you have a reputation for doing this. You promised this product would do X, Y, and Z, and it didn't. And I'm disappointed. You in essence lied to me, and I'm gonna tell you about it. 3 stars, the average mark. Yeah, okay. You maybe oversold me a little bit, but it did the job. 4 stars is I want to love you. You were great, but if you just did this one, just little bit, I'd be over the moon. I'd be a customer for life. And also don't just look at the star rating, but actually read into the stars. I discovered this a couple months ago. I was doing some work for an area college, and I was looking at their review sites, and they were getting 3s. I was like, a lot of 3s. Like, what's going on? I don't like having to learn online. Okay, well, I'm sorry that there's like a global pandemic, kid. Like that's not the university's fault. 3 stars. I don't like their chicken strips. Okay, I can't work with that. But so it's understanding the star system in order to filter out the 1s and 5s, and then diving into the 2s, 3s, and 4s to see where you can improve as an organization. Lastly, safe equals sensible. This axiom probably works in the 20th century, right? If we're not ruffling any feathers, we're going to be even better. But remember, we've gone from elephants to goldfish in terms of what we remember. So the reality is it's all a gamble. People are going to forget. Blending in is really expensive, right? And I see that, I'll give you an example. Stock photos like this. Now, I use stock photos on a daily basis. I can tell you that because I've used this woman in a different piece of context. She's a really popular Getty model. But there has to be more than just a generic stock photo to deliver your message. Otherwise, what you get is, okay, here's my stock photo for a doctor's place. Oh, now we're a bank. Oh, now we're an investment firm. Oh, now we're ag insurance. Oh, now we're a college, right? Like there has to be something more going on. Use stock, but it can't just be stock headline logo. There has to be more intent. Otherwise, you're not going to remember whether this couple is applying to random stock logo or if they're needing to get their investment from random stock logo. Okay. Take chances. You are collecting data. So if you swing for the fences and you miss, you can pull the plug pretty quick and pivot. So how do we do this? And this is where the hardcore branding comes in. Number 1, instead of just thinking about what stock is going to look good to your audiences, look within. What is your secret sauce as an organization? Why did you get into business in the first place? How do you compete? If your business was to be wiped off the face of the earth tomorrow, what would people miss most? Start there. Get a full understanding of who you are as an organization. Then make sure that that secret sauce can be taught to your customers, taught to your employees, taught to your vendors, taught to your dealers, taught to your communities. And if you do that and people have a really clear sense of who you are, then cool stuff happens. Then you can focus on who your fans are instead of trying to talk to who your audiences aren't, right? You can totally ignore that group of people that doesn't fit what your brand's all about. Coke and Pepsi coexist for a reason, right? If I'm Pepsi, I want to focus on Pepsi people. And then those Pepsi people, we're going to have an awesome relationship with myself and my customer base. And then those customers, they're going to become advocates. And they're going to do the selling for me. And we're going to have a magnetic brand that draws in more like-minded people. And so I can do that. If I'm doing that and I'm just focusing on the audiences that have really bought into my secret sauce, I'm not wasting dollars trying to convince people to buy my products. I'm not wasting dollars trying to recruit employees who don't fit our mold. I'm not wasting dollars, trying to attract suppliers who don't buy into what we do, one way or the other. So be authentic in your branding, figure out who you are, and then focus on spreading that message through everything you do so that you don't waste money blending in or talking to people that will not buy your products or services. So I talked a lot, but if you sharpen your tool and you axe these 6 axioms, here's what's going to happen for you and your organization. You're going to easily embrace how we change our behavior when new tech comes on, right? So you think 10 years, if we have self-driving cars, that's going to change the whole way we communicate and interact. And instead of resisting that, you're going to embrace it because you've embraced everything that's come before it, right? You're going to think about all people who touch your organization as potential adversaries or advocates. And they're going to, hopefully, if you manage your reputation, lean towards more of that advocacy part of the scale. You're going to work within the limitations of data to apply it and get the most out of it, and not stress over the spreadsheet, but stress over the overall outcome over time. You're going to figure out how to roll out content more efficiently by not thinking about the silver bullet or the singular big idea that's going to save or solve all your problems. You're going to make traditions without relying on tradition. If you use the words, this is what we've done in the past, or this is what we've always done, take that phrase out of your vernacular and you will go further faster. And lastly, you're going to figure out what your brand is, and then you're going to take risks that authentically reflect that brand. So final thing here, I've talked a lot over this last hour. This is a very dense presentation. I could probably talk about each axiom in greater detail, but if you have any questions now or later, I'm always available. Email me, jason@h2m.biz. Yes, it's .biz because we predate 2005. And then you can always text me because it's 2021 and I won't answer my phone. So text me. My number's there on the screen. Again, I really appreciate you guys taking the time. With the remaining minutes that we have left, which looks like 2, I would be happy to answer. I can stay later too, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you've had throughout this entire presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I'm glad you're willing to stay on until, as folks have questions, whether they're specific. One of the things that I wrote down, and you may not have an answer to this, but what are some of the things that we should look at? Like, how do we get people to care? Like, I think about that pie chart with all the red, like, okay, some of them don't care, or does that matter?
It matters, because getting people to care is paramount. If I don't care about you, I don't want to do business with you, right? Unless it's something that's very transactional. Like Taco Bell doesn't need me to care about Taco Bell, but that's because it's 2 a.m. and I need a taco. Like, that's different. But I think you care by, if you think about like the Cialdini and Cialdini's principles, which is how to influence people, there's things that you can do like reciprocity. I give you something, you feel obligated to give me something. I think a lot of it too just comes from doing things. Okay, I'm gonna pause for a little bit before I go down Cialdini's principles. Um, I like to use the term, and if you look at H2M's site, we talk about this idea of knowing when to sell. You don't. There's a reason you don't lean in for the kiss at the beginning of a first date, right? Like, as an you don't always have to be selling products. Sometimes it's just about building rapport, and in doing things from a place of gratitude. Thanking people for their time, getting involved in the community. I look at that Pay It Forward program again as the paragon of this idea of caring. It wasn't advertising, but they have grown. They started that program in 2002. By 2012, they had become a $2 billion asset bank, right? By 2021, just by giving and doing good in the community, they're up to $10 billion. No headline, no mascot is going to generate that much revenue versus just caring about your employees, caring about your community, doing good where you can, and let people judge you for what you judge, let the chips fall. That's how I would get people to care when you can. When you're posting content, post a stupid joke. Who cares? Like, make someone's day. And then when they're ready to buy what you have to offer, then you can talk to them about it. Or I also like to say, if people like you, they'll Google you. You don't have to worry about throwing things down their throat. Just be likable. Throw that, street fair, that street dance. Throw it. Why not? That's going to get you further than if you spend $15,000 on a street dance, that's going to get you further than, 4 billboards along the highway for a year. People are going to remember it, you hope, or at least they'll feel good. And at the end of the day, you made people happy. So, it's, and this is probably counterintuitive to most people in my industry, but I think that I just go back to, we're humans, we're pack animals. We are social creatures. We are social primates. When you look at what happened in 2020, all of the resistances to wear masks and social distancing, all of the resistance that comes down to the fact that we want to connect as creatures. And so when in doubt, do things from gratitude.
Good feedback. Well, if any others have questions that they want to ask for the good of the whole, feel free to unmute yourself and chime in, or again, get in contact with Jason directly. But I want to thank you for sharing. I've got like pages and pages of notes and things to do. So thank you, Jason, for sharing this. Of course, H2M is one of our great chamber members and have been for many years. And if you've seen the Find Your Inner Otter, you've seen the work of H2M. So kudos for all you guys have done for our county.
Yeah, and I know we're trying to wrap this up, but I think that Find Your Inner Otter campaign, the Otter Bus, highlights a lot of what I was speaking to before. How do you get people to care, right? Well, yeah, we ran some spots, but we actually went out into the communities and said, hi, here's a t-shirt. Do you want to sign up for $500 to spend in the county? And that we had 2,500 people that actually signed up and stopped by, and we were able to give out 250 gift cards. But so we made a positive impact on, a couple thousand people just by going out and saying, hi, here's something. We hope to see you soon. And I guess with that, well, I hope to see you guys soon.
Sounds great. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Thanks, Jason, and we'll stay connected.
Groovy.
We'll get connected at a later time, but Lunch and Learn is over. Go have a taco, everyone.
Yay, tacos.